Hi everyone and welcome. In this recording, I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming full moon in the sign of Pisces on the 20th or 21st of September, depending on where you are on the planet. Now, this is definitely going to be one really intense, highly emotional, and of course, profoundly mystical, the sign of Pisces, of course, full moon. And there is a very strong karmic element attached to this. So chances are this is one of those energies which is likely to have a massive karmic influence on all of us, regardless of where this energy falls into our personal charts. And the reason for this is that it takes place at 28 degrees and 13 minutes of the sign of Pisces, which is almost an erratic degree. An erratic degree implies 29 degrees of any sign, and everything that takes place at that or around that degree has its symbolism greatly amplified, and it's like a karmic discharge. It can be seen as harvesting the fruits of our labor one way or another, regardless of which sign and which area of life this falls into. And this theme is even more highlighted because Pisces is the very last sign of the zodiac. It is definitely the end, the culmination, the big conclusion of a specific karmic path, for example. And since it also takes place at the very end of this sign, well, this strongly suggests some kind of ending. But naturally, this ending can be like a bountiful harvest. And when I say bountiful harvest, I look at the Sabian symbol of 28 degrees of Pisces, which speaks about a beautiful and fertile garden under the light of the full moon. So how very synchronistic is this? But of course, it can also represent a really powerful karmic purge, where something in our lives, in our souls, in our own psychological configuration reached the very peak of its existence, and now it either has to transform. Like the Sabian symbol, what do we do with the fruit? We pick it and ultimately we consume it, we transform it, or it has to be purged out, it has to disappear, it has to turn into memory. And this part implies a very powerful healing that can take place in our lives at this time. And this is where this healing can happen quite suddenly, really. Almost overnight, where perhaps before this new moon we're still in a certain kind of emotional state where something which has been like truly ongoing in our lives for a lot of years, because this is the very end of Pisces, so this isn't really about the recent past. This is something like a cross, a burden, a weight, a strong emotion, a trauma that we have been carrying for a lot of years. And for some people, it can also be all of their lives, because Pisces, especially the third decan, also represents an ancestral energy. It might have been something that we inherited from our previous existences. So it can be like a soul level burden that we carry with ourselves from life to life. Or it can also be something we might have inherited from our families of origin. So the way this full moon acts is, first of all, the light of the full moon. It's a luminary after all, so it reveals that to us, it highlights that to us one way or another. As I said, Pisces is very mystical. It can come in form of a dream, of a very strong intuitive epiphany. Or it can be any kind of revelation where it doesn't just purge that heaviness out, but it also reveals it to us, and it also highlights the lesson. Why have we been carrying that burden, that cross, that karmic blockage, for example, with us for a lot of years. What was the reason for this? What was the cause of this? And ultimately, how carrying that burden transformed us. Because the third decan of Pisces, especially 28 degrees, it is highly transformational. Because let's think about the Sabian symbol, a fertile garden full of fruits. The fruit was once a flower. The flower was once just a little sprout. So it had to undergo a lot of transformation to become a fruit. And the fruit itself is also going to be consumed either by us, by animals, or by the earth itself. So it will ultimately undergo a transformation. And another element which hints to either a very powerful ending, a transformation, or basically, yes, for some people, harvesting the fruits of their labor. And this is where the labor part is either karmic, psychological, emotional, is the sextile this moon holds with Pluto, the ruling planet of Scorpio. Because as I said earlier, even a harvest is transformation, a joyful one that brings us a lot of rewards, yes, yet it is still a kind of transformation where something ultimately is turned to something else. And from an emotional perspective, hard work and labor and sacrifice and perhaps blood, sweat and tears at this moment is going to turn into joy, into abundance, into ultimately freedom. And also another element which is very important is the sun being at 28 degrees of the sign of Virgo. It is the opposition of the sun and moon after all. And 28 degrees of Virgo, according to its Sabian symbol, is a bald man who seized power, which represents life experience, but also that we have to be in control. And when we are in control, that means that we have to have a very healthy control. We have to allow whatever is purging to be washed away. We have to let it go. We must not hold on to it. And regarding the transformational energy, it is our life experience which has to basically dictate the symbol of seizing power, what we turn that experience into, or if something purges out from our lives, meaning it disappears, what are we going to replace it with? Now, before I get into an in-depth analysis of this Pisces full moon, I would just like to give a very, very important advice, because the Piscean domain, especially the third decan, which astrologers call the undoing of the self, can sometimes be a little bit dangerous. Pisces, ruled by Neptune, is illusion energy. Now, of course, everything in existence is an illusion. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is nothing outside of our perceptions is real. It doesn't have meaning outside of the meaning we subjectively attribute to this. And as difficult as it is to believe, even the most empirical, mathematical elements in our lives, in the universe, are susceptible to this. And this is something that quantum physics and also neuroscience has been studying for a lot of years, and they did reach the conclusion that ultimately our perceptions are everything. And basically a very simple example for this, like this computer that I'm using to look at the star chart, in my perception, it is a very powerful tool. But outside of my perception, it is just atoms, molecules, chemical elements that were arranged in a very specific way. So outside of my perception, it might not really be a very powerful tool. It might just be an abomination, because It wasn't nature, neither coincidence, which arranged it in this way. And where I'm going with this is that for those of you who kind of know yourselves that you are very, very sensitive to heightened emotions, who have been going through depression, anxiety, severe loneliness, who do know about yourselves that you have very fluctuating emotional states. Well, this energy, as I said in the interpretation earlier, it is a purge, an ending, a termination by its very nature. And of course, especially the third decan of the sign of Pisces is the unconscious mind, but that part which we don't really have a lot of control over. For example, the sign of Scorpio is also the unconscious mind, but we do have a certain kind of control over that. If not through our elevated thoughts and way of thinking, we still have power over it through our instincts, because Scorpio is a very instinctual energy. But Pisces, on the other hand, it is purely ethereal, as I said. It is the illusion. So, long story short, let me get to the very essence of what I'm trying to say here. Regardless of how intensely you might be feeling certain emotions, even if at the moment of this full moon it may seem to you that the whole world is against you, everything is dark, everything is full of pain, of suffering, and the only way out is the undoing of the self. Well, this is where you must do everything in your power not to allow those illusionary, fake, deceptive illusions to determine you to take any action in this sense. Those emotions, those feelings are not real. An erratic degree is also the shadow. Also, an erratic degree of Virgo is a different kind of shadow, the shadow of our intellectual spheres, of our minds, which actually wants this to be seen by us, to be interpreted by us this way. So we must seize control and say, no, that is not the answer. That is not why I have been born. That is not why I have been given this life, this body. All the blessings that are in of my life, even if at this moment we might not really want to focus on those. And even if these very intense, depressive emotions might be felt as drowning in an endless sea of despair, well, one of the main aspects that this full moon holds is a square, a T-square, with the Galactic Centre. And you can turn this into your advantage. The Galactic Centre is basically the divine mind. It is above every planet, every astrological energy. It is basically the very core of our galaxy. It is the glue that holds everything together, including fixed stars. So it is a much stronger power than any star in the sky. And we can turn this tension, the square of course, into prayer, into a divine plea. At this moment, we can truly call upon divine help. If there is no one in your life, you feel alone, you feel abandoned, I don't have to continue this list of possible emotions because all of us, one way or another, are familiar with this. We can share this with the divine, and at this time, it is definitely bound to help us one way or another. Perhaps the reason why you might be feeling this so very, very strongly is that it is exactly this that leaves your life. It is this where you will get healed. Maybe it is the depression, the anxiety, the doom and gloom, the despair, this powerful instinct to undo yourself, which will leave your life, your soul forever. So, whatever you do, do not act upon any instinct. And at the same time, one of the most harmonious aspects in the sky at the time of this full moon, it is Mercury trine by Jupiter in Aquarius. Jupiter in Aquarius, it is others, humanitarianism, compassion, other people that you can get connected to. You are never, ever, ever alone, really, for the simple fact that you're a human being, especially in this day and age. Like it or not, want it or not, know it or not, you're still connected to the collective consciousness. There is help out there. You are never, never really alone. You cannot know everything, basically, no matter how intelligent you are. How many people might truly love you and hold love in their hearts for you, and you might not even be aware of that. So, not everything is as it seems. If you might be feeling very depressive, very sad, very lonely, and you might have this instinct to, again, undo yourself, nicely said, do not give any power to it. The reason why you might be feeling that so intensely, it is because the light of the moon pulls it to the surface to show you that that is your inner demon, that is the shadow, that is what needs to go from your life, from your mind, from your soul, from your karma. So let it go, and the only way you can let it go is to not give in to it, not listen to it. If there is no other solution you might think of to cheer yourself up, pray, because your prayer is gonna be answered, especially at that time. And also remember, Pisces is a dual sign. It is the most spiritual sign out there. Spirituality can be seen in both ways. Let me just give you the most simple example possible. Angels, demons. Both of these energies, both of these beings, so to speak, are representations of spirituality, the spirit. So basically, it is really, really up to you to make your choice what you do with your own spirituality, which frequency you choose to embody. And another very good example that comes to my mind, well, the third decan of Pisces, as I said, it is Scorpionic, which means alchemy. And the example of the Buddha was a prince, he was wealthy. He could have lived a life of luxury, wealth, abundance for as long as his human self wanted to. But the Buddha knew that for his own personal alchemy, to understand the essence of what it means to be an incarnated, embodied being, he needs to experience the opposite: pain, poverty, despair, everything that frightens us, because that is fuel, that is power. Without that, alchemy cannot exist. And if you are feeling all of these very heavy emotions very intensely at this time, know that it's actually an alchemical process that is being enacted within you. You are actually turning those feelings into something else, into perhaps a powerful manifestation of your own healing. The sign of Virgo, purity. You're getting rid of those. So don't give in to the illusion that it's doom and gloom. And if you feel alone, reach out. There is help out there. Give yourself the chance to be loved by others if at this time you cannot love yourself. And by this being said, well, ultimately this is the most negative expression possible of this full moon. So now let's focus on the nicer things. Let's focus on its highest potential, because, I have to highlight this because it's so very important. It's mutable water energy, which holds a celestial conversation of harmony, a sextile, an action-oriented aspect where action is really psychological at this time. It's not really physical. It's not let's do this and that and that. It is psychological, what I choose to do with my emotions, with my focus, with my energy, with my inner power. So it is really, really up to us what we do with this. And if we choose to do the right thing, and what this right thing is, I'll speak about this in just a moment, we can turn this energy into a powerful purge where we just release, we clean out, we cast out, almost like an exorcism, a personal exorcism, things, emotions, traumas which have been weighing our souls, our hearts down for a lot of years. This doesn't happen that very often, so it is truly a unique opportunity for us to abandon our old skins and embrace a psychological rebirth. And the requirement for this, and this is where the right thing comes into play, as I said earlier, the main aspect that this moon holds, full moon holds, is a T-square with the Galactic Centre at 27 degrees of Sagittarius. I already explained that the Galactic Centre can be interpreted as the divine mind, as the very deep core, the heart of the galaxy, so divine love. The ultimate expression of the presence, let's say, of God, or name it however you want, within our minds, within our souls, within our psyche, within our instincts. It is basically the power of our faith. And the squares are naturally conversation of tension, hardships. For example, what in our lives doesn't permit us to live our faith, to live what we believe in, to live our highest philosophy, Sagittarius, to live our freedom, to live our lives trauma-free, to live our lives as light-hearted as we were created. Because every single child is actually light-hearted. That is a beautiful divine gift that we receive at birth, and throughout our education and that which we pick up from adults, we kind of lose it slowly and surely, yet again, shedding the skin, shedding all of that, returning to innocence. So if we communicate to the divine heart, to the divine mind, to God, or whatever shape or form or symbol the deity represents for you personally, speak it, pray, communicate, share it, plea. Give that power of belief to the divine to help purge out those obstacles. And this is quite a powerful manifestation energy, because the sun illuminates from the sign of Virgo. Mutable earth sign, Mother Nature, the ways of Mother Nature, mind over matter as well. But only, this is a condition, Virgo requires for the mind to have a certain kind of innocence, purity about it, not naivety, not foolishness, but purity. And the Sabian symbol of 28 degrees of Virgo, the bald man who seized power again, well, it implies that life experience, wisdom, does not go against purity. One can be even more pure when they also embody their life experience, but not in a fearful way, but in a courageous way. So as long as your feelings, the sign of Pisces, for example, genuinely from all your heart, from the deep core of your being, desiring a healed, emotionally healed state, that is one of the most pure feelings possible. And this feeling is aligned to the purity of your thoughts and mind, Virgo. All of the rational, logical reasons why you can actually heal, and that you have absolutely everything within you to live a balanced and pure life, And if you unite these two elements and connect to whatever the deity is for you, well, chances are it is definitely going to bestow a very powerful spiritual, psychological cleanse on you. And of course, the sextile with Pluto, you have power over your shadow. Especially that the Sun trines Pluto, so that is one of those moments of every year when a very intense, concentrated, singular, focused state can actually do miracles. This is where we can actually trigger even the hand of faith to help us out in the most miraculous ways. Pluto in Capricorn, trining the Sun in Virgo. Now another expression of this Pisces full moon for some very lucky, but when I say lucky, as you will see in a moment, this is so very susceptible to interpretation. So for a couple of very lucky individuals, this can represent a powerful karmic harvest. Of what? Well, whatever they urgently need in their lives. Because as I said, the Sabian symbol of 28 degrees of the sign of Pisces is a fertile garden under the light of the full moon. So this implies some kind of truly positive completion where you might have worked, as I said, for a lot of years, perhaps all your life, where it is in this moment that you can harvest the fruits of your labor. Perhaps not all of it, but some. You can pick the fruits that you need in your life. And let me just give you an example. Pisces is also the sign of self-sacrifice. Maybe where it was someone very, very dear to you that you helped, supported, sacrificed for a lot of years. A parent, a child, a soulmate, a best friend. Maybe you have been doing some kind of work for charitable reasons, or you felt that something was truly your soul's calling and you did that kind of activity, work, whatever that may be, unconditionally. And it is now where this full moon, as I said, squaring the Galactic Centre, so the divine, it honors you back for your sacrifice by taking something heavy, a load off your shoulders, or giving you something that you truly need, either emotional, but it can also be material in nature. Why not? Virgo is a material sign that can simply help you. It can make your life easier and at the same time transformation. That which was a sacrifice until this moment may after this seem like a rewarding action, a rewarding work. The element of sacrifice might disappear. This is also a really good energy for healing, for physical regeneration, for any kind of psychological purge. Now, without a shadow of a doubt, for everyone spiritual, artistic, everyone who knows that they have a Piscean self, this energy can be used for pure creativity, visions, dreams, inspiration. This is where it's gonna be one of those moments when you can actually feel that you're just ethereal. This energy can also terminate certain kind of karmic and soul contracts, especially where you might have been sharing the karma of someone else. For example, karma from family of origin, karma from an ex-partner, the result of a divorce, where the divorce physically has already taken place, but this is where it also happens from an energetic, from a karmic perspective. But this is where it can also represent that someone who karmically owes you something, like a help or to do what you have done to them, especially in the most positive sense, like help them out, save their lives, etc., etc., will simply be obligated by the power of this full moon, it will simply force their souls to one way or another repay the karmic debt to you, and this ultimately leads to a completion and also release. So pay close attention at this time what happens in your life, who contacts you from the distant past, or like an ex, or someone who might have been your enemy or disappointed you in the past, because this might be a moment of an apology. This might be a moment when they wanna set things right, to clarify, or this is one of those rare moments when it is exactly your enemies who will help you out. This is also the kind of energy where maybe you realize on a soul level, because of like an emotional epiphany, that something in your life is simply not worth it anymore. And this can be a relationship, a friendship, a work that you do, maybe your career in its integrity. Something about your self-image, for example, something that you're living and experiencing on a daily basis. You might get a very, very powerful feeling that it simply isn't you anymore. You no longer want it to be part of your life. So this might lead to a very strong decision that you are going to make in the weeks to come, because Mercury at this time squares Pluto. That means a change in relationships, because Mercury is in the sign of Libra, in a position where what astrologers call via combusta, so the path of fire. And whenever a personal planet transits this part of the sky, so 15 degrees of Libra until 15 degrees of Scorpio, relationships are transformed, thus the fire. Also at the same time, Venus squares Saturn, so feelings and emotions, especially about those things which are limiting you, which are no longer authentic to you, that which you might have outgrown, those which truly need either a transformation, change, or termination, or renegotiation, reanalysis, are definitely gonna pop up in your mind, in your emotional world, feelings, even dreams. So pay close attention, because this might set the stage for this upcoming Mercury retrograde, when you will truly contemplate, analyze, think very deeply about what you desire and how you can achieve the transformation, changes, or sometimes even endings, to live something way more authentic to who and what you are. At this time, Uranus also opposes Venus, so this might represent unexpected surprises, changes, and because Venus is in Scorpio, yes, on one hand that is more like a financial energy, but that is not the topic of this Pisces full moon, but rather it can represent secrets coming out, information that you overlooked, or that which was kept secret from you, perhaps like an infidelity or backstabbing, a betrayal. And the light of the full moon, regardless in which sign it falls into, it is always about revelation, shedding light on something, you being able to see things in a much clearer light. So keep in mind that secrets being revealed at this time is also a possibility that can be a game changer. But Mercury holds a quincunx with Neptune, so don't be very, very quick to judge and to make radical decisions. Remember, the 28 degrees of Virgo and its Sabian symbol, the bald man is in control. So excessive control and very radical action is a big, big no-no. Contemplate, think about it, let the emotions settle in, let them decant, let them be pure, let them reach their true essence. So that takes a lot of time, and only then make a legally binding, for example, decision. Now from a collective perspective, well, needless to say, it's gonna be extremely heavy, it's gonna be extremely chaotic. This is where I strongly suggest that around the time of the full moon, Turn off television. Don't listen to the news. Don't listen to the doom and gloom. Don't be deceived by social media. Detach. Simply detach from any sources of news, information, because this is where the power of fear can truly sabotage you, compromise you. It can simply possess you, and this is quite literal, I'm afraid, because everything that is being shared right now is actually a psychological manipulation, but one which is methodological, masterminded. It is based on a very, very powerful hypnotic technique. So, those who turn off the TV, don't listen to news, don't listen to conspiracies, don't give in to fear, just rather surround yourself with your own bubble of fantasy or escapism or whatever, because at this time, news and everything from social media is highly toxic. But of course, at the same time, this will also reveal a lot of secrets on the world stage, especially with the COVID, how it happened, why it happened. Pisces has a lot to do with hospitals, healthcare, immune system, immunology. So you can imagine the heated debate, you can imagine the half-truth, what is true, what is not true. Mercury at Via Combusta. This will change a lot of relationship, alliances, the legal side of things, the sign of Libra, where Mars is also in this part of the sky. Mars is the planet of action. It's debilitated as well. So, especially from a legal perspective, there is gonna be a lot of arguments, a lot of battles, a lot of fights. And because this full moon squares the Galactic Centre, well, from a collective perspective, this is where the divine might give us signs collectively that it's not very happy with what we're doing, with the situation, with how we are solving this as a species, and neither is it very happy with our spiritual path as a species. You know, some people will definitely hate me for what I'm about to say here. This is where the divine mind shows us that, you know, all those dreams and fantasies about new earth and the awakening and all of that, how can they be taken literally when all of us, both collectively and individually, are so very lost? New earth and unity and all of that kind of requires a community spirit. And at the same time, this is where the full moon squaring the Galactic Centre in Sagittarius, one of the symbolisms of Sagittarius is religion, religious fanaticism, or really, really twisted, manipulative ideologies and philosophic perspectives which are out there to manipulate. It is like the carrot on the stick. Gurus and big spiritualists might project upon us our deep desires, our aspirations. You know, who doesn't want love? Who doesn't want prosperity? Who doesn't want to be valued and worshipped and whatever? And if that is what is being promised to you, then you can imagine that it's not real. And also, this Pisces full moon can highlight from a spiritual perspective just how dominant the hyper-ego is in this day and age. And what is hyper-ego? You know, there is healthy self-love, healthy, you know, I'm worth it, I'm good enough, I'm whole enough, etc. And there is what modern spirituality makes of this, that I am the center of the galaxy, I am divine, I am the living God. And that is where you take an ancient truth but twist it in such a way that it's actually the ego that it appeals to. And how do you know the difference? Well, the soul, our spirits, they don't want to be equal to the Creator. They want to be children. Everyone's deepest spiritual desire And this is where not just humankind, but every being in existence, even those who are pure energy, they want to be children and they want to stay children. It is actually those spiritual powers who want to be equal, who are more or less predatory, and interpret this as you will. But anyway, as I said earlier, I do strongly suggest that we stay away from the news, from media, that we try our hardest to detach, for the simple fact that this is a very good way to protect ourselves of that fear, despair, drama, which is simply not our own. And on the other hand, this is a very powerful alchemical energy, so we have to take ownership of that. We won't have time and energy to focus on something external. This is where it's very, very personal to all of us individually. So this concludes today's horoscope. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, you can support my work and my channel by donating on the PayPal link in the description below. With this being said, thank you again for listening, and I wish everyone a magical and a karmically and emotionally very, very bountiful full moon. Until next time, bye for now.